Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm James, and what I have right here is a used DLE-30cc gas engine for RC planes. I purchased this off of eBay. Like I said, it's used. Has a few issues, but I'm hoping I can kind of work through those. Let's take a look at it, and I'll show you what I have. I did go purchase a few things here that I'm going to need to do a test run. I'll go over these in just a few minutes, but let's look at the engine first. Alright, so let me show you what I got in here. And there it is. As mentioned, I got this. This was listed as a used engine on eBay. This muffler, and the seller said it was new, but it had a few issues, which I'll tell you about, but it looks like it's in pretty good condition. If you look at this muffler, it looks like it's actually brand new. It doesn't look like it's ever been used. In any case, let's pull the engine out. And here you have it. So this is definitely a used engine. I knew that when I went into it. And you can tell it's got a lot of dirt on it. But it looks like overall it's in pretty decent shape for being a used engine. And turns over nicely. And the spark plug was not put in there because just put it back in the box. But spark plug obviously has some carbon on it. So we'll check that out. But let me show you what sort of the big issue is. Let's pull out the ignition module. Alright, well, you can see here that it's damaged. And actually, if you look at it from the side here, you can see that it's been pushed in. Obviously got in a wreck, got in a crash, and something happened to it, and it pushed here and it snapped the plastic. And then if we look closer at it, we can see, for example, one of the tachometer wires has been severed. See that? And then this is the lead that comes off the engine itself, and it's like it's got a few severed wires in there. And then this is just this connects to the battery. This actually looks like it's okay. Now this is taped shut. Let's go ahead and open this up and take a look inside here. And I knew this when I purchased it, that it had this issue with the ignition module. I figured if the engine's good, even if this is bad, the price was pretty good just for the engine itself. But I look at the electronics inside here, and I don't see any damage. Like, I don't see anything. There's nothing loose, nothing broken on the inside. Looks like it sort of survived that. So hopefully what it is just that some of these wires got cut and during whatever, it must have crashed. And what I'm hoping I can do is reattach the wiring and then set this thing up and see if we can get it to run. So for now, I'll just tape this back on here, keep it together. And the bottom line is with this thing is if it doesn't work, it's not going to work, because I don't know anything about electronics. So if there's something damaged in here, I'm just going to have to get another ignition module for it. But we'll leave it like that. I don't have a big concern about the tachometer, but I do want to hopefully get it powered up, and hopefully it'll work. Everything else looks pretty good. Let's just put this back in here for right now. Then let me show you what else I have here. In order to do this test run, I needed to get a mounting set. This is a standoff mounting hardware for the engine. I had to purchase a prop. This was actually probably the most expensive thing, relatively speaking. It was pretty expensive for one of these larger props like this, but it has to be drilled out so that I can attach it to the engine. So I purchased a drill guide also. This is for the DLE-30, a drill guide, which we'll use as a method to line it all up so that we drill these holes nice and straight. Then of course I have the manual that I downloaded offline. And then I have over here, I'll just move it out of the way, this stuff here, I have a new test stand that I built for this. I'm gonna have to drill it out. I'm gonna have to drill out this firewall here to attach it. But this is the new test stand that I built just for this engine. So hopefully we'll get it all going and we'll do a test run and I'll have a nice engine. So the lead coming off the engine itself looks like it's in pretty good shape. I'm not going to worry about that. Let's go back to our module here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these wires. I'm going to cut these apart and I'm going to try soldering them. If they're small wires, I'm just going to try to solder them together, see if I can get that to work, and then I'll just get it kind of re-insulated. And I'll do the same thing. I don't have a lot to work with on the tachometer here. Like I mentioned, I'm not too concerned about the tach, so I may just hold off on that. See if I can peel this wire out of here. I'll be very careful because I don't want to cut the wires again inside there, so I'm going to just be super careful. White, red, and black. Here they are. Okay. Don't have a lot of work to work with. There we go. There's one. All right, so I got those 3 wires nicely exposed, and I'll do the same thing for the other side. So I got the wires exposed, so let me go ahead and I'm going to connect them together. I'm going to put some shrink tubing near them, and I'm going to try to do some soldering and see if I can get that to work, and then I'll shrink the tubing around to insulate them. We'll see how that works. They're pretty small to work with. I'm not an electronics guy, so we'll see how it turns out. Well, like I said, I'm not an expert at electronics and such, but it seemed like this worked. Maybe not the cleanest job. I'm going to go ahead and put this over the end there, like that. I think I can heat this up on here like this. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing for the red and the black, and then we'll come back, and what I did is I got this larger piece of shrink tubing here because I figured I was going to have all these smaller ones, so I'll just go over that and we'll get it all sealed up. Hopefully it'll work. We'll see. Okay, well, we'll see if that worked. All you electronics experts out there can send me some tips, but I think that'll be okay. I do think I need to check on this tachometer wire though, because I noticed that it's severed here, and then it's got some severing, some damage here, but then it's also severed kind of right down in there. And I don't want this to sort of, I know electronics can be a little bit tricky. I don't want there to be any kind of like shorts or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull this off of here, I guess. And yeah, you can see like right in there, actually, you can see that it's been damaged right inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. I don't have a lot to work with though. That's going to be a little tricky. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is, those aren't severed, they're just exposed. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try to just cover those. Hopefully that'll be okay. Try to insulate them from each other, in other words, if I can. Yeah, so I don't think that the wires are particularly damaged, they're just exposed. So I'm going to try to see if I can split this wire between the two, the yellow and the orange or red, and I'm going to try to split them apart and then maybe put a piece of insulation in between it, like some electrical tape or something. Again, I don't know how important it is. I mean, it's just a tachometer, but again, if it's going to do any kind of interference or anything like that, I want to try to avoid that. So yeah, you can kind of see, hopefully you can kind of see it's exposed right there, and this one's not too bad. And of course we got this one broken. We'll try it. May not be pretty when I'm done with it, but if it works, then that's kind of all I worry about. Well, all right, that was sort of fun. I think they had pretty good success up in this area here. It was a little bit tricky with the tachometer wire. It wasn't my best soldering job, but anyhow, we'll see how that works. And obviously I just kind of put it all back together with some electrical tape to secure it. But yeah, that's all I got. I can't do much more than that, I don't think. So what we'll do next is get the engine set up. All right, so what I'm going to try to do is just put this back together with what it came with. I have a brand new spark plug. I'm not even going to check it. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. I just want to see if it'll run sort of as is. And then if I have to, come back and change out the spark plug or adjust it. But let's get this on here. Okay. And then I have this mounting hardware for it. I'm going to put this in a little pan. And this is a DLE mounting hardware kit. And these guys are going to go just like this. Okay, so it has 4 shorter bolts that attach to the engine, and they have little washers for each one, like this. And then you can kind of see it's got a wider kind of flange on one side. This is what's going to go up against the firewall, and this is what goes up on against the engine. And these guys just go like this. And I'm going to mount them onto the engine and then use that to measure where I need to drill onto the firewall for my test stand. So let me get these guys all attached on here. Well, I intended to show more of the mounting process, but unfortunately my camera, the battery died on my camera. I didn't realize it. So in any case, I now have the engine mounted to the firewall here with the 4 bolts. And then I also connected the throttle control rod here, as you can see. Very simple setup here that I made. This is just made out of just wood, obviously, and I got some brackets from Home Depot. As you can see, these are just like an L bracket. I just screwed them in here, and then I just had another bracket here, and I just screwed it on there, and I bolted it on there. And I'm just using little Sullivan, or these are Debro connectors, and just kind of made a little test stand here. No big deal. And I have this clamp to hold it in place, depending on where I want it to be when I'm adjusting the throttle and when I'm adjusting it during the test run. I can just put this on in here, so I can set my throttle where I want it, and I can just attach the clamp to hold it in place. It works out okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next step, which is to install the propeller. So the propeller that I'm going to be using is this master air screw wooden. It's an 1810, and it does have the hole drilled out in the center, but it's not big enough. In fact, the hole, or actually the shaft, the prop shaft here on this DLE-30 is 10 millimeters, so basically 1 centimeter. So this has to be drilled out, obviously, in order to fit that on. In addition to that, we have these 4 additional mounting screws that need to be drilled out as well. So because we have 5 holes to drill, I purchased this drill guide by DLE. This is a DLE for size 30 engines, and it's a drill guide to help keep everything nice and straight. So let me show you what we have in the bag here. So we have the main part, which is this, and the reason it's so thick is because when you put this on top of the prop, what we're going to do is we're going to drill out the center hole here. This will plug into the prop like this. We'll get it lined up where we need it to be with the holes, and then we'll drill through those holes with using our drill bit and our drill, And because it's thick like that, that'll keep it straight as we go down into the wood. It would be difficult to drill it by hand and without kind of going sideways with it, unless you have a drill press, which I do not have, and I imagine a lot of people don't either. That's why they made this thing. Okay, so let me show you how this is going to work. So the prop shaft is 10 millimeters or 1 centimeter. And what I have over here is a Great Plains prop reamer. And I believe this size right here is going to be 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and ream this out. We're going to ream it from one side about halfway, and then we'll go the other way, and we'll flip it, and we'll go from this side. And that way helps keep everything lined up a little better. So then once I have this hole reamed out, this will go plug into that, and then it'll attach from the back of the prop using the washers, and that'll secure it onto the propeller. And then we'll go ahead and we'll drill this out. And the thing about it is I'm going to have to make space because of the fact that you're going to have the head of the screw sticking out in the bottom, if you will. You have to put a piece of wood down or something with a hole in it so that it will lay flat on top of that surface. You'll see what I mean once we get going on this. And we'll start. If you never used a prop reamer, they're very easy to use. It doesn't really screw into the wood, it kind of cuts it. It's basically cutting it. And you push it in as you turn, and it cuts it. I'll pull it out and I'll start from the other side. Okay, now I've got it down to the diameter that I need to use for the actual prop size, which is 10 millimeters, as I said. So I'll go back and get this in here. Again, if you had a drill press, you could mount this in a drill press, and it would be a lot easier. One day, maybe I'll have a drill press. There it goes. And we'll go ahead and we'll take these screws out so we can see if it fits, hopefully. Pull these out of here real quick. Still a little snug, so let me go ahead and kind of clean it up a little bit in there. All right, this should be good now. There it goes. So the first thing we do is we set the engine at the compression stage, which is right about there. And then we put the prop on at about a 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock orientation, like that. And then we'll go ahead and mark the location of our first hole, right about there. And now we'll just take our drill guide and we'll line up the hole with our mark. And then we'll just screw it through the back. Don't want to over tighten it. Okay. And then we'll just take it over here to our block. And this will sit right in that little hole, as I mentioned. Well, I just realized that the hole actually has to be big enough to accommodate the washer as well. So let me go ahead and drill this out even bigger so the whole thing will fit down on top of that. You want it to be flush and nice and sturdy. All right, so I got my drill bit, and I'm using a smaller hand drill instead of a larger one because it's easier to sort of hold and control. So I'm going to use the drill guide as shown here, and we'll just go ahead and drill it in Doesn't matter which one we start with, but carefully hold it. Watch out for my thumb. Again, I want to be very careful with my finger here. All right, so that worked. And we'll take our first screw and we'll just put it in to hold it in place like that. And we'll move on to our next one. I'm going to go to the back here. There's our second one. All right, well that looks like it worked okay. Let's see if we can get it mounted on the engine now. And then just in case I didn't mention it, I may have, you want to do all your drilling and reaming out what you need and drill holes and such in your prop before you balance it. If you balance it first, then you'll go ahead and you'll sort of disrupt your balance again by drilling things out and everything else. So do all this stuff first, then balance it. Now let's go ahead and install the muffler. And as I noted earlier in the video, the person who sold this to me actually included what looks to be a brand new muffler and also a gasket to go with it. So this will go on here like this. These guys just drop down inside there. Gasket on there. I mentioned earlier that I was just going to go ahead and put the spark plug in as is from the seller, but I decided I'm going to go ahead and take a look at it, and I'm going to set up the ignition and see if we can see a spark. And why waste my time if it doesn't work, right? I mean, replacing it is easy enough. They're not expensive spark plugs, but I like to just kind of see what I get when I purchase these things. Kind of cruddy. Got some carbon on it, carbon deposits, but I'll clean it up a little bit, and I'm going to check the gap here. So I have some fine sandpaper, and I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to drag it across those points in there, or electrode, whatever it is, and just kind of clean it off a little bit on the side there. All right, well, according to the manual, the spark plug type is a CM6, which I have here, CM6. And then the gap is 18 to 20 thousandths of an inch right here. So let's go ahead and check it. I have my feeler gauge out, and I have my 18 thousandths and my 20 thousandths. And oops, it is set much closer than that. Okay. So who knows what happened? You know, if you can even drop a spark plug like this, if it lands on the little electrode or whatever this is right here, it will close this. You have to be careful. So who knows? I'm going to go ahead and carefully try to spread it apart with a screwdriver, and then we'll go ahead and set it. Okay, there's 18 is in there, 20. I'm going to go ahead and set it at 18. And what you want to do, it's too loose. You want to make it so that it just barely drags. When you drag this thing here perpendicular to the, I'm going to call that like the little electrode in there. I don't know if that's the right term or not. But when you drag it between those 2 points, it should just kind of barely kind of drag it. You don't want it to bind on there, and you don't want it to be loose. You want it to just basically be able to drag it through and feel that drag. So this is way too loose now that I did that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press it down a little bit on here. Yeah, a little bit too much. A little more. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. All right, so I have that set at 18 thousandths of an inch. All right, so now see if we can get a spark going on this. We'll try out. I put my batteries in my little battery pack here, and we'll get those on there. And here's the ignition module. Hopefully the wires worked out for us. Hopefully it's not damaged. Let's go ahead and get the spark plug, and we'll put it inside here. We've got to press it in there pretty hard. Make sure it goes all the way in. That's one thing I've learned with these setups, is you really got to push that spark plug all the way in as far as you can get it. Okay, I think that's good. All right, now gotta be careful now. Let's go ahead and put this down here. And let's see, so this is the lead that goes to the engine right here. Put you right there, dude. And then here's the battery right here. Okay, let me go ahead, before I hook it up, let's get the spark plug someplace where we can actually see it when we turn it, and see if we can get a spark. Okay, hopefully this is a little bit better to see. Let's see if we can, there it goes. All right, well that makes me really happy, because now at least I know that the ignition module works, and seems like we can actually get this engine running. And let's go ahead and set it up now. Let's go ahead and finish setting it up. I'll put everything on it here, and we'll get ready for a test run outside. Few more adjustments to the carburetor. All right, well, I can't get this thing to go. It pops and does a little bit short little bursts, but it won't do anything. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out these spark plugs. Since it looked kind of crappy, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull that out and replace it with a new one, and we'll see how that works. Well, okay, I think that's a success. You know, it took a while to tinkering to get it to work. This isn't, you know, obviously it's a used engine. I don't know its exact history. It's gas engine. Every engine you have to learn its little nuances and such to get it to, you know, to run properly. So I can tinker around with this, but I think overall this engine's running pretty good. I'll have to play around with some of the adjustments. I brought the idle down, and you saw it was kind of rough, but I was measuring around 1600 RPM on my idle and just kind of playing with it. It's bouncing around a bit because my throttle connection up there is, you know, it's not super secure. I found this thing just vibrates and has so much power that everything is shaking on my test stand. But overall, thing is working great. So, you know, I can play around with it, and obviously it's an older engine, like I said, so the carburetor may need to be cleaned out, and God knows what. It seems like the spark plug was definitely an issue. It seems like it's running better with the spark plug, the new one in there. So anyhow, and you know, happily, well, I guess I'll say I'm happy that the electronic ignition is obviously working after the work we did on that. So that's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can start this up again and get a couple more runs with it. Okay, folks, well, that's going to be about it for this video. It had a lot going on in this thing. I hope it was sort of enjoyable to watch all that. We had a lot of little things going on between fixing the ignition wires and setting the spark plug gap and mounting the prop and everything. And yeah, the engine looks like it runs pretty well. I have to check the RPMs. It looks like my max RPM was around 6,000, and I got to check that against my actual prop size here. But I think it's doing pretty good. It's a pretty beefy engine, and boy, it ran pretty nice. Like I said, gonna have to still maybe tinker around with it, and who knows, probably need to clean out and the carburetor and do some things like that. But overall, I'm happy with the fact that I got it going, and I hope that was at least a little bit entertaining or fun for you all to kind of watch. Okay, so until next time, thanks for watching my channel. I really appreciate it.